Welcome to Star Wars Newsnet Live. Today we're going to be talking about Ahsoka Episode 4, Fallen Jedi, I should say, right? Fallen Jedi. So Thank you so much for joining us. Hit the like button, leave a love note, aka a comment on for us. Join the conversation. We're going to be talking about this whole episode, breaking it all down. And I am not alone as well. I am here with my friends here. Brian, the bearded wonder himself. How you doing, Brian?
Hold on, guys. You guys can now bow down to me and worship me as the Star Wars prophet. And I know the future. Always emotion the future is, and I can see all of it. So, yeah.
Bro, didn't know the future. Everyone knew he was coming on the show.
Yeah, but I got the dialogue down. I got it perfect. Like, perfect. I was losing.
I'll give you the dialogue. I'll give you the dialogue.
Yes,
but dude, they ruined Rosario Dawson already ruined that a long time ago. So you weren't at the. No offense, you weren't the prophet. So.
You show me where she ruined it, and I'll buy it. But I don't buy it.
She was on Instagram. She was. I got to play with Hayden Christensen. Then she deleted it.
She didn't say anything about hello, Snips. Hey, Snips.
Okay, that's the one that. Okay, I'm sorry. That's the one thing that.
You go, guys. I'm feeling
anyway. All right, Bearded Wonder, you're good. All right, and we also got the youngster himself, Mr. Tyler. How are we doing today, Tyler?
I'm doing great. I will say, like, as we ended last week, Brian was like, next week's episode, or he was saying Tuesday's episode is going to end with Ahsoka, like, passed out. Then she's going to wake up, and all we're going to hear is just a hey Snips and, like, a brief glimpse at Anakin, and then it goes black.
I even got her butt kicked right, like everything.
That's how we ended it. And I was like, I would love that. We'll see. I feel like they're gonna.
I was sure.
The voice I could see. I didn't know if we'd see him, but we did see, the man himself.
So really quickly, Tyler, do me a huge favor. I gotta let my dog out. Well, can you just tell people? We'll start with the whole theater thing, and I have a lot to talk about. But why don't you set people up on that and talk about that for a minute? I'll be right back.
Absolutely. While Paul takes care of dog parental duties, we will go ahead and move forward. So, Brian, they announced that they're going to do these like screeners at, it looked like 10 theaters across the US, and then some select theaters in like Europe, looks like mostly like London. So I would say that it was very positively received by the fan base, and the fact that it's in the middle of the season is pretty cool. And obviously it's because of Hayden Christensen coming back, of course. Like it's just going to be that kind of an event. So what were your first thoughts when you saw, wow, it's in theaters? And then what were your thoughts after you said, crap, I might have to drive a million hours in order to actually see it?
So, because that news broke yesterday, right? That they were putting in. So I was at work when I saw the news, and when I saw it on a TikTok first. I think it was Soup's TikTok came across my my For You page. I don't know why, I don't even follow him. But anyway, it came across that he was talking about that. I'm like, what? No way. And so I started looking, and then it wasn't just a couple minutes later, Newsnet broke it, and I was like, well, dang, okay. And then I was like, what does that mean? Like, because it's got to be something huge, right, for them to want to release something that big in theaters. And it's got to be bigger than what we just saw in this week's episode. So I was stoked. And then I instantly, it said limited theaters. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to see it because I live in the middle of the country. I was like, I got to be close to something. And I looked it up. It's 10 theaters across the country. 10. And
Dallas?
Closest one is Dallas. Yeah.
Yeah. Was it like a 14-hour drive or something?
It's like
9-hour drive.
It's like 6, but
you're really close to the border, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm really close. I'm like 2 miles from Oklahoma. Oklahoma's 2 miles.
Okay. Then probably probably about really 5.5, 6. Yeah. Okay.
And
never mind.
So,
for a reason, I thought you were like. Far, like north or whatever.
Oh yeah,
like
no, I'm very.
So I was thinking, like maybe like 10. Yeah. Okay.
If I throw a rock hard enough, I can hit Oklahoma.
Well, I'm pissed because I'm a stupid school teacher, so I'm not on my phone all day, and I get off for lunch and I get rid of my fourth period. Finally, I sit down. I'm like, wow, Star Wars is in theaters. Let's go. And then I'm like, of course, it's 30 minutes, and that's all it took for them to bounce back and go ahead and just destroy and take all the life out of my sales. I went from on top of the world thinking I was about to see episode 5 in theaters, and then 1 minute later pissed off because I'm having to enter my information into the wait list, which I know there's no way someone's getting on this let's join the waitlist. Yeah, right. Stop. Like, you're just
It's
messing
gonna
with
take
me.
somebody losing internet connectivity to get you in there.
It's like whenever you lose a flight or something, and it's like, well, we can offer you like 50% of points for American Airlines in
It
order to
doesn't
make up for
soften
it.
the blow at all.
Like, thank you so much. Like,
I
can't wait to fly with you again.
I looked at my aide across the desk from me when I found out I wasn't going to be able to see it in the theater, and I was like, guess I'll just go home and watch it on my 55-inch like a plebe.
But I'm
like, whatever.
I'm so happy for the people that do get to go, though. That's going to be such a cool experience.
Cool.
I remember, like I mentioned to you before the show, like I got to go see the Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power premiere in theaters. And it's a mixed bag in terms of the show itself, but just being able to go and have that theater experience for that was really special. And, so seeing Star Wars again in theaters, anything would have been special. What about you, Paul?
Well, so sorry, I had to get my dog. I thought she would be fine. She started barking, and I didn't want her barking the whole time. One of the things I wanted to bring this up is because I'm going next month. So, here's a crazy thing. I didn't know about it for a good portion, and it wasn't until a friend of mine kind of alerted. I kind of saw something about it, and I thought, wait a minute, like what is this? And they're like, yeah, dude, you should get on. And I went, okay. And I thought probably already gone, and it's in Linwood, which is right outside Seattle. And I live like 25 minutes out of Seattle now. I used to live in Seattle, but we just recently moved. RIP, me living in Seattle. I miss it. Anyway, I kind of thought I was gone. And I like kind of what Tyler said, I kind of put my information in. I'm like, but there was no wait list. I'm like, okay. And then it's like, here are your passes. I was like, okay, I guess I'm going. So I got 2 tickets to go, one for myself. And here's the funny thing, Tyler, I can't give this one away. I'm trying to like give it to be like, oh, I can't do it. It's like, what the fly out here in Seattle. I got you back, homie. You can stay at my place.
It's literally when I got on
Tuesday
there.
night, though, it was hard to pull.
Yeah,
Orlando was the only one. Orlando was the only one that was waitlisted at the time I looked. If I had lived anywhere else close to this, at the time, it was the first one that went to like waitlist. I'm looking at like Dallas, some of these places. It was like anywhere else, and I'm thinking Disney is right here. Like Disney is right here. How come we don't have the most passes? Like how come there isn't like a whole event over here for this? Oh, I was less than pleased. My 5th period comes in after lunch, and they're like, "Mr. Bradshaw, like, why do you look so upset? Like, go sit down. Go sit down. We're not
flow through you."
Yeah. So if I'm gonna suffer, you're gonna suffer.
We are writing an essay on how everything is unfair in the world. Ready, set, go.
Well, so here's the thing. I want people in the chat. Are you going? Go ahead and tell us if you are. What did you not get? Did you try to go? You're not able to get tickets like Tyler or whatever. It is interesting that they don't that Orlando was the only one waitlisted. Yeah, because I was able to get in mine no problem, and I was an hour, almost 2 hours probably after. Well, probably even more than 2 hours. I don't know when they announced everything, but basically I thought like I wasn't gonna get it at all, and I'm like, oh, and honestly, like it's one of those things where. Like, one of the reasons I want to talk about it is because we talked about right before the show. Why don't they do this more often? I've got a record, I think, on the show already, I think, or at least on all these podcasts I've been on. It feels that I'm telling Disney, especially with Star Wars specifically, that they need to actually, instead of just do Disney Plus only, but do more of these theatrical things, because to me, you're only generating buzz, and these things look like Ahsoka would look great, not just episode 5, which I'm assuming will look amazing, but like all the episodes would look great on the big screen at this point. And I don't understand why don't they do more things like this? Like, why don't you sell, $20 for 4 episodes, like or not $20, but $15, whatever, right? I would pay $15 to watch 4 episodes in a row of like a movie, even though it's not made that way. But they edited it, they edit the episodes together, like, without credits or whatever, and just did it all the way through, and no problem. And I don't understand, like, with this is all free, right? Like, and I do wonder because Obi-Wan Kenobi series that had a weird kind of theatrical thing too, right? But this is and that was a big deal then too, because it was Vader versus Obi-Wan, right? Which is a great episode, by the way. I love that episode. I wonder if because this is a bigger deal and it's got to have a lot of Star Wars stuff kind of all together, you got to think that that's the reason why. I hope it's not. I hope it really is Disney testing out the waters a little bit, saying, well, how do we utilize the theatrical process for these things like Marvel and Star Wars, and say, how can we get them in, make some money off this, and then also give fans what they want, like you, Tyler, saying like, put it in the theater. Like, again, like Brian, I'm assuming you would do this too, right? You would go pay, even though you have Disney Plus, I'm assuming we'd want to go see it in the theater and spend a couple extra bucks to go see it sit down for a little bit to go do it. I'm assuming you would. People in the chat, would you do that? Would you spend, let's say $20. Let's say it's $20 for 4 or 5 episodes in a row. Would you guys do that? I would do it in a heartbeat. In a heartbeat. I mean, this is not rocket science. You would do. Oh, got a delay. But tell me, people in the chat, hit me up. Am I crazy? Am I nuts? I mean, because not everyone's gonna want to do it, but do you guys think enough people would do it? I think there is, personally.
Right?
Yeah, I would. You got to think about, they would have to start dropping series, and as full lump drops. If that was the case on Disney Plus, they wouldn't be able to keep it episodic then, because otherwise you're going to stay home and watch them all on Disney Plus each week and then go watch all of them on the theater, or you're going to just have to not watch any of them for 4, 5, 6 weeks and then go binge it in a movie theater, which either way, I feel like if they were going to do that, they'd have to get some.
Okay. So Brian, I know we're and trust me, people, we're going to get into Ahsoka in a second. I just got to pitch this to you. Okay, because we had this already, right? We had the first episode, the first drop was only 2 episodes.
Right.
So you're telling me you wouldn't spend $20 to go watch those 2 episodes on a big screen? Not
2 episodes, no.
You would not. I would.
2 episodes. I wouldn't do 2 episodes. You'd have to be 4, 5 episodes for me to pay $20. I'm already paying how much a month for Disney Plus? You know what I mean? I'm not going to pay to watch the same thing twice. So
that's fine. That's fine. I would. Because because Star Wars to me is an event. It's not like I love watching it in my home, but I'm also coming from the perspective I work from home. Right. So like I'm sick of being home. And I think some people are kind of like me too. They don't want to be home all the time. I want to get out. I mean, I'm willing to spend $20 is a lot of money for 2 episodes. I will agree. Right. But if it was $10, I mean, but
I'm also looking at an hour drive to my closest movie theater.
See, I'm thinking of,
if they did something along the lines of, they released it all in theaters as one lump thing, like you're talking about, like a month before they release it on Disney Plus, then yeah, absolutely, I'm going to go watch it.
That's not a bad idea.
You know what I mean? It's the same thing they do with the movies that release in theaters, and then 3, 4 months later, whatever, 6 months later, they put it on Disney Plus. So with the series, you could shorten that window a lot, drop the whole thing in theaters, I'd pay $30 to go watch the whole series. You know what I mean? And then a month later, oh, hey, you know what? Let's just watch the episodes. And it breaks it all up. I would probably do that. Yeah.
Okay. And Tyler, you have the last word on this. Anything else you want to add?
I mean, I have a teacher's salary and I'm paying however much that I need to pay to go see something in theaters for Star Wars. I'm a sucker.
Yeah. Hell yeah. That's
I love there. I love the theater. I love going to movies. I go every week to the theater every week, every Friday or Saturday night, and Star Wars would top the list for me.
Hell yeah, that's my boy right there. See, I see you taking your beautiful girlfriend out there to the movies all the time. You're doing things right out there in Florida.
So we have like a little movie pass card, so it's like a weekly thing. It's like our tacos and movies.
All right, so here's my thing: is that more of a you thing, or are you guys together thing? Are you more in the movies than she is?
I am way more in the movies than she is, but when we started dating, she was not movie theater person. Now, though, she was like, hey, we should get the movie pass thing so we can go see more movies for less money. And she really likes going and making it's like a date thing. She's like, we're out, we're going to doing something. So it works.
Exactly. It's awesome. That's awesome. And I
love how
here's the
Brian
thing.
is just using his Kyle Katarn like lightsaber as like
Which-
just a little like facial.
By the way, yeah. Hold on. I'll
Sorry. I'm weird. I have to
We're
fidget.
gonna grab
You're
this.
just like I'm flexing right
Yeah,
now.
I'm sorry. Oh, you want to go? All right, here. We'll
Yeah,
just do
so
two. How's that? Yeah.
I'll have my
Yeah.
we'll just use our lightsabers as
I've got a
you know.
here, and we'll even go 3 because I've got another one right here. We'll do that.
General Grievous is actually live right now.
So anyway, which I think I'm going to steal this idea from Brian, by the way. All right. So anyway, we've talked a lot about this already. But just interesting food for thought. Again, people in the chat, like the video, comment, et cetera, whatever. But please, by all means, comment and let us know, would you guys pay more to see these lump sums in a theater, however they would release it? I think no matter what, like Tyler and me, they got our money. They put it in the theater, we're going to be there. And I think a lot of Star Wars fans are like us. Anyway, let's get into the episode finally, guys. So we all agree this is the worst episode of the series so far. So
Utter garbage.
No,
in movie theaters.
I'll be honest. I'm surprised they didn't put this in the movie theater. Like, I thought this would be for sure like something, in retrospect, this to me seems would be perfect for a movie theater experience because of all the things we got in it, to be quite honest. I feel like the pacing, and I'll just want to say this right now. I said this on Twitter. I think that this 40 minutes of whatever, I think it was under 40 minutes if you take away all the other extra stuff, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But man, I gotta tell you, they gave you so much in this episode. And to me, if you want to break down how you can make Star Wars work and what makes Star Wars work so well, and what is it? I wouldn't say a perfect, but what is a efficient way to tell a story in Star Wars? Episode 4. Mm-hmm. Like this episode, the Fallen Jedi episode, is probably, to me, if I had to teach someone how to write Star Wars, I'd be like, go study this episode. And I'm being serious. From the pacing to the script, from the dialogue, the interactions, and this is the big thing. And I'm gonna throw it to you guys here in a second. I just gotta get this out of the way. From the lore building to the world building to the characterization building of building the characters, character development, all that stuff, and you get all that in 40 minutes. That is goddamn impressive. Someone tried to tell me online, and again, I said this person, I mean no disrespect, it's a follower follower of mine on Twitter for a long time. Jonathan, you're a good dude. But he was like, yeah, I think Filoni needs another writer. I was like, you're insane. Like, Filoni is not the world's best writer, obviously, but I don't want anyone touching Star Wars but him. Like, he gets it. And I just, he said, some of his dialogue isn't very good. I'm like, you know what? Like, yeah, he's not like writing Martin Scorsese, the Departed or, Mean Streets dialogue or whatever, right? I get it. Godfather, whatever, right? Whatever. But you know what? Like, he does a great job of what he has, and his pacing and storytelling is second to none in Star Wars. Besides George, like, he's a GOAT. Like, he is the GOAT. So I think this episode's almost perfect for Star Wars storytelling. If Kathleen Kennedy and anyone who takes over for Star Wars, Lucasfilm, they need to bring this episode up and say, study this for anything Star Wars related besides the films. Study this episode specifically. So, Bearded Wonder, take it away from there.
You're absolutely right. Before we started this episode, I made the comment, and you were like, "Save it." I made the comment that we aren't we? Pretty close, isn't it? It's a pretty nice saber. Anyway, I made the comment that this was, out of every episode of Star Wars television we've had so far, this includes season 2, the finale of season 2 of Mando, with Luke and the Dark Troopers, and that episode of Book of Boba Fett, that Mando 2.5 that we got with Ahsoka and Luke and all that. This beats all of it. Like, this beats the Jedi, in my opinion. This beats all of it. This is my bar none favorite episode of Star Wars television we've got so far. I was freaking out so badly by the end of this episode. I was screaming that my mother-in-law had to come out of her room, and was making sure that I was fine, like that I was not hurt, because I was just screaming. I had to go outside and I had to take a breath on my front porch. I had to calm down. I had to take 2 melatonin that night to go to sleep because I just could not relax. I couldn't.
Wasn't hype at all.
Yeah, no, not at all. I just, and then I it's such a good episode. You're right. The pacing, the lightsaber duels, the Rock'em Sock'em Robot scene that we got was awesome. That, I mean, it was just everything about that episode. You know, and I know we'll get into details here in a little bit, but Ahsoka tapping into the dark side for just a second when she thought Sabine was gone, and I mean, just everything. You're right. We got so much all at once. We got to see Balen being a beast, and it is an absolute crime, and it's just an absolute unfair disservice that Ray Stevenson doesn't get to be here to receive the love that the fans are giving him for this character. He is an awesome character. He nailed it. He's a beast with that lightsaber. He's huge compared to Ahsoka, and he's just, you know, brings that presence, and everything about this episode was just absolutely chef's kiss, as Paul would say. I want a Black Series figure of Balen and Shin. They're quickly becoming my 2 favorite characters in this entire series. And just, there's something about them that he's got so much gravitas to him, and she's so mysterious, and just, you know, she's I don't want to say she's vindictive. She's very passionate about, and she's taking everything, you know, that fight with Sabine coming back. She's taking that very personal, you know, and everything. So I think she's just this wild animal on a leash that Balen's holding, and I'm absolutely digging it, man. Absolutely digging it.
Yeah. All right, Tyler.
Sorry,
your general thoughts.
I had to rattle. My bad.
No, you're good.
No, you're good.
Before the show started, I think myself, along with all of you, we thought, you know, there are limitations to what a live action series like this can do, just because of all of the different sects of fans that you're trying to interweave into the show, the amount of previous knowledge that exists coming in. And up to this point, I thought that they had done a pretty good job. After this last episode, my previous inhibitions and thoughts that there were certain things that were off the table, certain things that might not happen, those are all gone. Everything is on the table. Filoni is not holding back. I don't think he is really giving much thought at all into how might a casual Star Wars fan relate to this. How might someone understand what's going on? He is fully telling the story that he wants to tell, and it is the most Lucas storytelling that we've had since, you know, Rebels, since the prequels, just because it is very much you are the fan, I am the creator, and yes, I think you're going to enjoy this, but I'm going to tell the story how I feel like the story needs to be played out. And Anakin showing up at the end was amazing, but to me, it wasn't even a top, like I thought there was so much in the episode that was so much better than that. That's what made it so amazing, is that this episode is taking these characters that have pre-existing storylines, but it's weaving these entirely new arcs for them, these entirely new scenarios for them, to where every single person watching this is able to say, wow, that's new, that's different. And it's not relying on strictly nostalgia. The nostalgia that's embedded in this series is used to benefit the plot. It's used to benefit the characters. It's not just so you can sit back there and be like, oh yeah, I remember that. That makes me feel good. No, it is building into a larger narrative, a larger story that I think we're only halfway through. And this thing was, I'm very different than Brian. I sit back and watch Star Wars. I sit back and watch everything that I enjoy silently. I don't move. I barely breathe. I might not blink. I refuse to.
You're absorbing it.
I don't eat. If someone next to me sneezes, I will look at them. Like,
you don't eat? What are you? I cannot watch something without eating. Like, I have to I plan my whole eating schedule around.
One side, I sit and I need complete silence. Like, I don't want to miss a thing. Okay. That episode, for me, like an audible gasp or like that. That's like a big, like that just never happens when I watch something. And so I did that multiple times throughout the episode, where my buddy who came over to watch with me, because he knows the rules when we watch. He looked at me.
Your girlfriend knows rules?
My girlfriend does not watch Star Wars stuff with me. We don't watch stuff.
Why is she your girlfriend?
We're not. We don't.
Harsh, homie. Hey, my girlfriend, my wife doesn't like it either. I get it.
She sent me this random video the other day of her watching the Ahsoka episode for Mando, and I was like, "Since when are you watching?" She's like, "Oh, just catching up on some of the stuff that I've missed." And I'm like,
"Some of this," and that's where you're at. Like,
and
no.
she goes, and I was like, "Wait, are you serious right now? You've been watching this?" And she goes, "Do you really think that I would watch Mando without you? You've been trying to get me to watch this for 3 years." I was like, "Actually, you would. You would binge it all without me, and then just start dropping the facts
out of spite
in my face." But no, I mean, I was audibly gassed when she took out Marrok. I was like, that was sick.
We'll get into that. Yeah.
There were so many moments where I was just, it was a masterclass. Nothing's off the table. Nothing is, I think, inconceivable at this point. Now, there's still I'm not saying I'm giving credence to every fan theory out there, but there's so much that has already happened, especially in this episode where with 4 episodes left to go and, possibly another season movie to follow, there's no telling where this could end up. This is groundbreaking stuff for Star Wars.
Yeah. I just have to say that it's groundbreaking in a sense to where it really is taking Star Wars where we all thought the sequel trilogy would go, to be quite honest, because there was so much. And again, I don't want to bring up the sequel trilogy because I do love a lot of elements of the sequel trilogy, and there's some things I don't like about the sequel trilogy. But the one thing that I never understood was JJ. And again, I actually am more supportive of JJ than most people, but I never understood the idea of ignoring so much lore and so much storytelling that was in the previous, not films like the prequels, but also in the Clone Wars. And I think you're seeing the benefits of utilizing those things in the series alone, right? Like the fact that you have, you're utilizing the Mandalorians, but you're not overusing them, right? Like you only have Sabine, you have the Night Sisters, that whole aspect. You have these different things you're using within the already established in the Star Wars universe, but you're also building off of it by adding other things at the same time. So you're not just being like, hey, guess what? I'm not using any old aliens. We're only using new aliens. It's like, okay, I get it, right? Like, again, there's a little nitpicks for the sequel trilogy, sure, but it's nice to get like new with old intermixed, right? It's just nice to, it takes the new stuff down easier when you have the other stuff around it to help you kind of build off what you're creating. And I think that Dave Filoni has been through the fire, right? Dave Filoni has been through the fire of the fans before the sequel trilogy. He went through the fire of the prequel trilogy of those fans of not liking anything, being like, just, the prequel trilogy is terrible, blah, 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 all that stuff. And he was the one that justified, I would think, to be honest, I did not, when they first announced Clone Wars back in the day, I was like, I'm done. We already got the Clone Wars Jenny series. I don't need any more. And I avoided it for a year because I did not care about the prequel trilogy. I was done. I wanted to move on. And it was Dave Filoni and George Lucas who created, I think, maybe one of the best things of Star Wars ever, which is the Clone Wars. And is the Clone Wars all good? No, but Dave has been through the fire. He knows what fans will tolerate, dislike at first, but then get used to it, et cetera, et cetera. And then he created Rebels, which got better every season. And I'm rewatching the fourth season right now, the halfway through. And it's incredible. It's great Star Wars storytelling. And it's like, man, you had someone when you're doing the sequel trilogy, like Dave Filoni, and you just did not utilize him. And it's crazy to me that we're seeing him basically tell a sequel trilogy or a sequel story, essentially, right?
Yeah.
And just killing it and just giving us all these great moments. Like, for instance, and I'll throw it to you guys here in a second, but people complained about Ahsoka's characterization, right? And we talked a lot about in the previous episodes, right, guys, where I was a little hesitant about where they were going with Ahsoka, right? And if she felt a little too serious, and I'm like, I don't know, like, where are they going with this? And it feels at this point, again, I can only go by what's going on at this point. Ahsoka seems to be definitely going on a journey for her character, right, Tyler? We talked about that. And I said, and you helped me get off the ledge. And I said, as long as we see like where this is going, and we see it here, we see Ahsoka get pissed off. And there's one thing I wanted to bring up, and I wanted to see if you guys caught it. Do you guys, when Balen and Ahsoka fought, who attacked first?
Ahsoka did. I thought that too. She went all in.
And I thought that was very interesting because she ended up getting her butt rocked, right? I mean, granted, yes, we see here she grabbed the thing and enabled her hand, etc. But she got rocked, man. I mean, Balen
it ties
came in
into everything they're trying to do. Her fighting first. It's
the thing. Yeah, I'll throw it here just really quick. I just want to it's end here that we talk about the big stuff in this episode, which we can go on a whole episode, right? Of why that's important, et cetera, and we will. We're probably gonna go a little bit longer than we did last time, but you know what I'm saying, right? The thing is, though, people complain about where's Ahsoka's, where's her, characterization, et cetera. We're seeing that, I think, come to a head in this episode, and it's not on the nose, right? That's the best part about it. It's subtle, but it's building, and you see it throughout the whole episode. Like, she's just like, okay, I'm just gonna quietly start rocking people, no big deal, and then all of a sudden, like, she gets egged on, and then she loses, and her overconfidence was her weakness. Right? She thought she could walk in and destroy Balen, and Balen handed her, her face, basically. So, Bearded Wonder, tell me where you're at with Ahsoka in this, because I know you weren't anti or anything like that, but I'm curious, do you think that this episode almost justifies a little bit more of what we got previously in these episodes with her characterizations? I didn't have problems, but I was kind of hesitant towards it a little bit. I'm curious where you're at right now with that.
I don't think much has changed, to be honest. I think what happened was, I think looking back now, hindsight's always 20/20. I think looking back now, Ahsoka was trying to be the stoic, master to her apprentice of Sabine, and trying to be that authority role and to show that authority to her. And, after, not this past episode, but the episode before, when they're doing the whole dogfight and they start working together with the piloting and the gunning and everything like that. And I think that was even a moment for Ahsoka where she started to realize she didn't have to be that person for Sabine in order for them to be able to work together. And even when they're getting ready to go into the forest, what Hu Yang tells them, Hu Yang tells them, stay together because you've always been stronger that way. And that was the moment where they, kind of looked at each other and was like, "Oh, we'll
that was great."
Together. And then what do? They split up. But and you see what happens, and so I think that's where we're at with Ahsoka. And for a character that we've, already grown to love through Clone Wars, through Rebels, through Mando, even the episode of Book of Boba Fett. It just goes to show, even though you've got this established character, when you think you know a character, there's even more that you can learn about them. There's always a new direction that they can take this character and something new to happen to it. And I think that's what this episode was, with Ahsoka tapping into that dark side for just a second. I think that was a new twist on Ahsoka. I mean, none of us really thought she was capable of that at this point, but you're still learning about these characters as we go, and that's what I love. It still feels fresh. You don't know what's coming next.
Yeah. So Tyler, I really want to hear what you think about this, because I think we're probably, I'm going to guess we're on the same page, but I'm curious where you're at now and if you feel justified, because I feel that the journey that she's going on is definitely more subtle, but it's there. I think people who disagree are very much ignoring some subtle things from Ahsoka in here. But where do you stand on her characterization after this episode?
So there are so many nods to what she's going on throughout the entire thing. I think it's important to start from the very beginning of the series, when she's even talking to Hera about how she's the one who left Sabine, that she walked away from Anakin just like she left Sabine. And from that line right there, I felt like, okay, Hayden Christensen, this show, we knew that going in. And that line right there shows me that she is still carrying so much of the guilt over Anakin's turn. She is carrying so much of the pain from that still, that she has not gotten closure. She has not seen her master as a Force ghost since. That, to me, told me everything I need to know, because she left Sabine, what I believe, largely out of fear of failing her down the line, is what I'm projecting onto this. She's being this overprotective, maybe the line that Balen had of how, you know, that's here to Sabine, your master didn't trust you, and that's, you know, why your family is dead. I mean, who knows what all went down there. And then the stoic nature at the beginning was her not trying to open herself back up because of the relationships she's had that have gone so poorly throughout most of her life. And we kind of flash forward, she's starting to, you know, open up again. She's smiling. She's even joking as they're running off into battle right there. Just like, we are going to go together. It gets a little head nod, a little smile, and they take off. And this is all coming to a head when Balen eggs her on with basically just saying everyone knew Anakin, you know, few saw what he became. And he looks at her just like, surely that must leave a mark. And at that moment, you know that mark is still, it's buried beneath her, but it is just pouring out of every decision that she's made over the last who knows how many years since she, you know, Ezra pulled her out, you know, in the World Between Worlds, all that good stuff when she survived. And part of me wonders, too, you know, this is exactly what is going to happen with Anakin showing up. And we are going to finally get that closure for her in the next episode. And I think that I'm not saying her character journey is done, because there is some resolution that needs to happen with Sabine as well when they come to meet again. But in terms of that inner conflict with herself, I think that is what is ultimately going to be forgiven in episode 5. I think that redeemed Anakin is the one at work here. And I just really want her to get that closure that she desperately needs, because it is the reason she lost to Balen in that fight. It is the reason that she left Sabine, and so many of the wounds that have happened and the carnage that's happened around her all stems from her just carrying the guilt over what happened to Anakin. And she needs to understand that that was not her fault. And I think she's finally going to get that in the next episode. I really believe that.
I think resolution is a great word for this, because she's carrying the weight of not just her people that she loved, like Anakin, that were her family. She's carrying the weight of the Jedi legacy on her shoulders too, because she left the order, and then her master, but you know, her father figure, brother figure, essentially, right? Like, is, you know, went full on crazy and, you know, became evil and turned on everybody. And then, you know, she felt the Jedi turned her back. And then what happens? Like, the whole order goes to hell. And then she still, like, she doesn't claim to be a Jedi, but she still holds that burden of, like, she's kind of one of the only ones left. And, you know, even though Luke is like, you know, because I'm very curious where this resolution also lies with Luke, right? Like, does she feel like an obligation to help Luke out? Because that Ahsoka is a little different than this Ahsoka, right? So it's just interesting. And I love her. I love the fact that her whole, like, she has to kind of move on, right? It's not necessarily even trauma. It's just like there's all this stuff. I mean, it's trauma, but it's more of, I have to come to peace with what this is and what I am going forward. And you feel that way, that she's trying to figure that out. Because there's a couple of interesting things about this. Again, I think the series has been brilliant. And part of its brilliance is not giving us all the answers for what happened between, you know, when the end of Rebels to now, right? Because why did Ahsoka train Sabine, right? We don't really know. And because we know Hugh Yang is like, well, she was not very good, you know, and they keep emphasizing that, which I still hope that Sabine's not like some, you know, world beater Jedi. She's just going to be kind of almost like a better turret, if you will. I hope it's almost, she unlocks a little bit of the Force, but not like full potential. Again, that's my preference. But what I want to know is, if she's not a Jedi, why'd she take on Sabine? You know, like, there's different things about this that she's going about she's almost aimless at this point. And it feels like she's trying to figure out where she kind of fits into everything. And we know that there is eventually going to be, we assume that, you know, because Dave could change his mind, there's got Ahsoka the white or gray to the white or whatever. And it's like, where does she get that next step, right? Like, where is that next, you know, and we don't know. And I still firmly believe that a lot of this will probably end somewhere in that new galaxy. I don't think she's going to be in this galaxy. I think she'll be in this new one event when this whole thing is over. I think she'll be in there, and
Mhm.
and hope she'll be helping Ray. And I have no idea. I hope so. I don't know. But I will say that this whole idea of resolution is definitely evident there, and it definitely feels like she's aimless right now. Doesn't know what she's doing, except for her only motivation is basically, I got to get Thrawn because he's a bad thing, and maybe get Ezra back too.
Mhm.
So
I
it
think
feels
the aimlessness is purposeful. I don't think she
okay.
wants to have a home. I think she's scared of finding her purpose and finding that place
Right,
again
because of the lack of
because
resolution
the last time she had it is what happened with Anakin, is what happened with the Jedi,
in
and
the
she
Jedi.
yeah,
Yeah,
and she can't find that again until she gets that closure, the resolution you're talking about. I think it's similar to what we saw with Obi-Wan in the Obi-Wan Kenobi show, that he had a very different relationship with Anakin to some, as his mentor, and then brother, versus Ahsoka being his mentee. But at the same time, he was unable to really move on until he got that closure with Vader, and it was a darker closure than I'm hoping that we get here for Ahsoka at the end.
yeah,
But it's still, once he was able to reconcile the fact that he was not responsible for what happened, and he was able to move on and ultimately be the one there to guide Luke when Luke needed him. He was able to do that, and I think Ahsoka needs to have that similar resolution to become who
yeah,
she needs to be for the Sabine, for Ezra, for the next generation of whoever's going to follow.
yeah. Anything you want to add on this before we move on, Brian?
No, I think you
Okay.
guys basically covered it really well.
Excellent. Excellent. All right. Well, let's move on to some big there's a bunch of big stuff we got to get to. And I want to get to this really quick. And I don't think we can spend a huge amount of time on it, but I think it's really interesting is our boy Merrick here. He everyone they speculated on him. I gotta tell you guys, when I talk about lore building, mythology, world building, this is a big reason. I'm like, when she chops him up and that stuff comes out of him, I went, what the F? And like you for those who know the Star Wars and know the Clone Wars, you know exactly what this means, and or you know exactly what or where this came from. But what the hell does it mean? We have no idea. I'm losing my mind about it already. Guys, tell me what your thoughts on Merrick are, real quick.
Go for it, Brian.
I'm really glad he was nobody as of now.
I agree.
No,
I
I'm
agree with that.
I'm pretty sure that that's what it's going to end up being. But I'm really happy with the way they did that, and it was really cool. I'm with you because I think, was it you that said in our Discord chat for Newsnet that it was Dathomirian? It looked like Dathomirian magic.
I didn't say that. No.
Maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was somebody else I was talking to. It does kind of look like Dathomirian magic, pouring out of him. So I don't know what it was. We've seen Inquisitors get beheaded. We've seen them fall to their death because their little helicopter thing didn't work. We've seen them melt. We've seen them, all these different ways the Inquisitors have died. And I don't know. Was it Dathomirian magic? Am I crazy?
Yes, 1000%.
That's what I thought. That's what I thought it looked like.
I thought
it sounded like it too. It
did.
sounded like it too.
Kind of
Even
scream to it, and so, and what else I liked about that was it was very reminiscent. If you take out the rest of the entire fight that they had together and just take it out into that final one stroke moment when they're staring at each other, very reminiscent of Kenobi and Maul, and I loved it. No, I'm almost dead sure that was Dathomirian magic.
Oh yeah, I mean, I thought, to be honest, I thought it was.
Like, who was it? Like, was there a corpse in there? Was there?
See, that's what. See, okay,
really
quick. Okay, so Tyler, before I give it to you, I just want to say, as soon as she chops him off, right? Like the first thing I thought of, guys, was holy sh. This was literally magic embodied into like trapped into like armor, basically, and the magic filled it out. In like think of Savage Opress, right? Like it made him bigger. So think about like that whole idea of like the essence, like spirit of some creature or like of Dathomirian, Nightsister magic, like they put into this like armor thing, and then like it turns into this and is like a wielding, like force using, like lethal, henchman, right? So there's a bunch of things that threw out to me. And Tyler, really quick, I'll throw it to you what you guys think here too, Brian. I thought, why don't the Night Sisters do this a bunch, right? Because we know it's probably around that. There has to be a limit to it, of course. But where's the limit? I want to know that right now, because that's pretty deadly to put some magic into a to anybody like this for Savage Press, and all of a sudden have it be a BA, right? So where is the limits, and why aren't we? Will we get this explained more? I don't know. But I love it and I want more of it. So Tyler, take it away from here.
I don't think that we'll get it explained. I don't really want to get it explained. I think that just having the Dathomirian like Night Sisters magic going on and that just being a thing, that's just pretty cool. I think it's nice to have that back in Star Wars too. I think it's my brain theory is that it was just some Inquisitor that discovered the Night Sisters magic, and they were like, "Oh, we can kind of control him doing whatever." Kind of like how Kanan and Sabine were controlled by the Night Sisters and Rebels for a little bit. I'm wondering if maybe something like that happened, and they were able to do that. I don't know about you guys, but when Ahsoka went full like over the head like thing, I just got straight Attack of the Clones flashbacks with Anakin doing the same like pose, and then the slice through. I mean, I do not speak during shows, and I just gave like that was just so awesome. And I just loved with the ease in which she was just like, "Yep, yeah, I just did that." So yeah, it was good. I love the fact that he was no one. I'm 99.9% glad that he was no one and he's dead. The 0.1% of me that's sad is that this was maybe our last chance to see the Inquisitor Helisaber in live action, and I just really wanted to see what the people. I really wanted to see what the people who've never seen Rebels would just say if they just saw someone flying with a lightsaber, like on Twitter, like just the hate, that's impossible that someone could fly with a lightsaber. Just people just losing their minds over like a once. That's all I wanted.
Guys, I never listen. It's silly, but I never hated it. Like
so funny. I liked it. Fine. I just thought it would have been funny because everyone would be like, the hell is that? Well, that would have happened.
One of the Inquisitors did it in Jedi Fallen Order, the one you fight on Kashyyyk. When she jumps over the log, she's like, boom, and like it slows her down.
It's true. Yeah. It can be done right. It just in Rebels. I think it just looked weird because it just came out of nowhere. You're like, what the hell? So anyway, all right, Marrok was awesome. Let's get into really quickly Shin versus Sabine. Now I want to take up my arch nemesis Ben here.
Uh-oh.
He was ripping on this part. Listen, again, I don't want to begrudge anyone who disagrees with me or agrees with me. It doesn't matter to me. It's cool. We're all friends here. I disagree with you. You had mentioned you hated the fact that Ahsoka left Sabine after getting her butt rocked. Well, you know what, man? Like when you're up against it, you got to give faith in your apprentice, and also you really don't have much of a choice at this point because you're trying to get this whole map thing going on. So she didn't really have much of a choice, in my opinion. And she thought also you could also, in my opinion, think, well, maybe she learned her lesson the last time they fought. But obviously, and to be real, she did. Like, I mean, Sabine did like Bester, right? I mean, in the best way. I mean, God, when she did that whole "you have no power" moment and that happened, I was like, oh my God, I lost my mind. I laughed out.
So good.
I laughed out loud. It was perfect. So what's your guys' take on the Shin versus Sabine round 2?
The lightsabers there look so good.
They do.
Great.
I actually agree with you, Paul. I think Ahsoka running to get the map, because remember what she told Sabine? She said it may come down to having to sacrifice Ezra to keep one from coming back. And if she's if she's got that mentality, she's willing to sacrifice Sabine to make sure that doesn't happen. And when that all goes sideways back, where the map's at, and then she thinks Sabine actually is gone and she lost the map, that's when she starts tapping to the dark side. I really like this fight. And when Sabine falls back and she throws her hand up, did she actually hit her with just a little bit of a force push? Just a little bit of one, because it seemed like,
I think it was like when someone's about to maybe someone's about to punch you and you're just bracing for it kind of thing.
So I wasn't sure if she actually used any force there or not, and if it was just some tiny little push where she was like, "That's all you got. You don't have any power." I really liked this fight a lot. I liked how when Marrok went down, it took Shin off balance a little bit. To the point where she basically had to Batman her way out of the fight, and I really enjoyed that fight a lot. and we talked about the Rock'em Sock'em Robots thing too before we went live. And which we haven't talked about here yet. But you come off the Rock'em Sock'em Robots fight with Hu
which
Yang,
is great,
which was awesome. And it's funny because I made the comment about Hu Yang too, real quick, and then I'll come back to this. Hu Yang's always like wobbling around a little bit, and then when he goes into fight mode, he's like Yoda, pulls his lightsaber out, goes to town, and then he goes back to the walking stick, right? So I really liked Hu Yang, and every episode Hu Yang just keeps getting better. But anyway, back to the Shin thing. I really like Shin. And like I said earlier, she's taking it personally, getting, bested. Because even though, she told her you have no power, and she still hits her with the, the gauntlet.
Such a great move, man. Oh my God.
She realizes there's nothing she doesn't even have power, and I can't best her. And that's when she Batman's out of there, So I thought it was a great fight. And I'm glad it didn't end the way the first one did. With the weird like shish kebab that didn't, So
I'm glad it didn't either, because we avoided all these other YouTubers trying to like get money and go, oh, I can now do another video of how this doesn't make any sense with laser swords and how a lightsaber should really work. It's like, all right, whatever. Anyway, I digress. Tyler, why'd you talk about this fight here real quick?
It was great. Everything about this episode flowed perfectly. The lightsabers looked great. The duels themselves, it felt prequely in the sense of, a lot of fast cuts. You had the quick, movements. Something I love in the sequels is how some of the like lightsaber battles feel a little bit more, raw kind of fights, but there is an element of kind of the choreography that goes into some of these lightsaber duels that is still very appealing, kind of like the prequel-y vibe. And for this one, it felt like a nice balance of both. It didn't feel like they were just dancing around, doing their thing, but it also felt like you could see they have clearly some training that has gone into this, and they're sticking to that, while also there is a lot of emotion, in here. Like, I just want to take your head off, which is what Shin is. And she is, I think Brian said earlier, she's like the wild animal that's like you're holding back on the leash. Just every time she is on screen, she just owns the moment. Like, just absolutely owns the moment. She is everything you want in that just kind of just side villain that is just evil and going to just get hers. You have just a great contrast between her and Balen. So the fight scene was great. I love it so much. And I can't rate this episode higher than, a 10 on this. Everything just seems like it just is pretty much amazing. Outside of, I meant to say this earlier, I do think Filoni could benefit from a little bit of a writer's room. Not that like he changed the dialogue a bunch, but just some of the stuff that is just a little too on the nose sometimes that doesn't need to be like said.
That's Star Wars to me. See, that sometimes like George, and you could say criticize those things for George. Like, it's for me. I mean, anyone could benefit from like having like assistance, right? Like, I want to make that very clear. Like, anyone could benefit from that. But I also feel like there's a certain freedom of having someone have all of it and be able to pace it the way they want to. Is that kind of the artistic driven, like vision kind of thing. I don't, to me, Star Wars has always been on the nose a lot of times.
It's less about just, it's more of the whole, my friends and I were talking about this, the whole like, oh, it's poetry, it rhymes kind of symmetry thing. Like sometimes it's just, there's always like one or two eye roller moments for me with Filoni. Like this week's episode was the Jason Sindula. I got a bad feeling. Like, okay, but stuff like that.
Hold on. No, see, that's not. See, I disagree. Because to get into that real quick, and we'll get into the fight with Balen and the World Between Worlds, and we'll head out of here. So really quickly, I just having like X-Wing and the Ghost, that was awesome. And again, like, talk about a perfect, episode to analyze what makes Star Wars great. Like, just a great moment of spaceships for a few minutes, and that was fantastic to see. I mean, it looked incredible. I will say that the Jason Sindula thing, or is it Jason? Are we calling him Jason Sindula?
Yeah,
what?
It's Jason.
Okay. Yeah. Jason Sindula. I do think that it was on the nose to an extent, but it's also emphasizing that he's force sensitive. Because he says, I have a bad feeling. Like, it's if he was to have a bad feeling about this, that would be way more in your favor, right? But I feel like it's both a nod, but also it's character development, because you have a little bit ago, he's like, I want to be a Jedi. He's like, oh yeah, you do, kiddo, you know. And then you kind of think he's just, whatever, a silly kid. Yeah, he probably is force sensitive, but that was an interesting moment because he realized like, oh, like this is not good. I mean, obviously it's bad happened because people died, but there's more to it. And the way he says it, like, credit to the kid, I believe what he said. Like there's something more at play that he feels. It's not just like people are dead. Like, no, it's big, even bigger than those people who died. Like there's something bad going on, like kind of a thing. It was interesting. So I read that a little differently. So it was kind of on the nose, but whatever.
It made me roll my eyes. I'll be honest. It's like, yeah, you got a bad feeling, kid. Yeah, lots of people just died. Everyone's feeling bad. Deal with it.
Tyler,
it made me roll my eyes a bit. There's always like that one Filoni line that kind of just, all right, like, okay, like how can I see it? It's random.
Listen,
it didn't bother me. It was just kind of all right, Jason.
When you have kids, it makes more sense. That's all I gotta say.
Hey, I love little Anakin and Phantom Menace, some of his little cheesy lines. Like I love it, but at the same time, I was just kind of like,
But when you're a kid, you probably didn't think of it that way. As you get older, you recognize, okay, it's a little ridiculous. But as a kid, you take it as face value, and that's
innocence with it. Yeah.
And again, everyone can have their opinion. You say it's terrible, and it's fine. Every kid may not like that, but to me, you need to keep that innocence and that like everything is face value. That's what Star Wars is. It's for everyone, and I credit Ahsoka for being such a well-rounded, all ages TV show, because it doesn't just go full kid. It gives you all the aspects that you need. So again, that's just my perspective. I'm going to say we're going to jump into the fight between Ahsoka versus Balen round 1. I'm going to say right now, this thing was incredible. Like this might be one of the best live action lightsaber fights, in Star Wars. Potentially, one of my favorites, because one of my favorite things about lightsaber fights are my favorite ones usually are the ones that are building more character and there's a lot of talking between them, and it's not just like a full on like we're gonna duke it out for like like a Darth Maul versus Obi-Wan Kenobi at the end of episode 1, where it's like them dancing for a little bit, which has its own place, right? But this fight between the two of them was building character of both. You're showing the characterization of Ahsoka, you're seeing the characterization of Balen together, and it's great moments. And you see two actors just going at it, both I think from the their vocal deliveries, but also physically of how they're swinging their lightsabers. I mean, my buddy Kyle from the Saga Continues, we were talking on our episode yesterday. He talked about how I guess Rosario Dawson was saying, "Hey Ray, you don't have to hit so hard, because he's just going. You could tell the way he's hitting is like full on, like he's going for it, man. Like he's not holding back. And Absolutely. This dude's big, he's huge. This guy's a hulking old dude. And by the way, my wife just told me yesterday he's got hot dad vibes. So
he's huge. Yeah, no, you're not wrong. He's got a presence.
And I just want to say that this fight scene just solidified to me what a good lightsaber fight is, because I always go back to Empire as being probably my all-time favorite, because it wasn't much of a fight, but it was a lightsaber fight. It was intense, and it was intense not because like they're evenly matched. It's because Luke was over his head and was getting his A rung the whole time. And it's just building character of Luke and Vader and their characters, whatever, right? So it was very not reminiscent of that necessarily, but in that same vein. And I loved it. So Bearded Wonder, what's your take on Balen versus Ahsoka round 1?
Real quick, leave that picture of Balen up for a second, because I want to point something out. Everybody talks about how he looks like, that King Arthur kind of code of honor look, you know what I mean, with the shoulder plates and everything like that. Look at how he's holding his lightsaber. He's holding his lightsaber the same way a knight would have held a broadsword. So he's got those heavy duty attacks coming in, and that's what we saw during that fight. That fight was awesome, and he was a beast. He brought it. I mean, that is, if I saw somebody that big coming at me with a lightsaber like that, I'm crapping myself. I don't care. He's huge, and he had such a ferocity to his fight also that, Ahsoka was, had she not been distracted with trying to get the map at the same time as fighting him, I think she could have held her own a lot better. But having her attention kind of split like that gave him kind of an upper hand on her. But he is just a hulking mass of hate, like coming at her with this orange lightsaber, and it's like I said, with the heaviness of his attacks and everything, it matches his physicality, his presence, and everything like that. And so he's quickly, like I said earlier, he's quickly becoming one of my favorite characters in this series. And we've noticed too that he's got a bit of a code of honor about him.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we've talked about that.
Absolutely.
Love it.
And you really don't know exactly where his allegiances lie, because I mean, I don't think he's all the way in with trying to find Thrawn. I think he just wants power, like when Shin asks him, what happens when we find Thrawn? And he's like, for some, war, and he's like, for us, power, so I don't think he's in it for Thrawn. I think they've got their own agenda and everything. So he's got different motivations for trying to follow this through and see this mission through, and holding Ahsoka back. I don't think he didn't want to take Ahsoka out. He made the comment in an earlier episode that it would have been a shame to see her dead, and so throwing her off the ledge, I think he knew she was going to survive it, which we can talk about here in a minute, whether she survived it or not. There's a theory, but the fight itself was really cool, and like Tyler said earlier, it had essence of that prequel kind of feel with the fight, with some of the choreography and the finesse, but it also had some of the classic trilogy clunkiness to it a little bit, like between the Obi-Wan and Vader on the Death Star kind of fight. Really, really, I think it was a perfect blend, and based off the motivations for each of them, I think the fight worked really well.
Yeah. Tyler, take it away from here, man.
So I agree with most of what you said on the fight and everything. I just want to talk more about some of the maybe the smaller things, like when they're just facing off. And Ahsoka, begins by holding her lightsaber, back a certain way, and Balen adjusts and has his form. She then turns and she puts her lightsaber more behind her. He raises his a little bit. They go back and forth a little bit, and then Balen's lightsaber changes again, and it's almost like two samurai warriors that are sizing each other up. They're testing each other's, I step this way, you're going to step here. If I move my blade here, you're going to switch to that form there. And I felt like two masters really trying to get in each other's, head, where they are evenly matched in terms of almost, it's kind of like Count Dooku when he's like, we will not settle this by the Force, we'll settle this by our skills with the lightsaber. But in this, it was, we are evenly matched in our ways with the lightsaber. And so what Balen does is he really gets inside of her head and, wins that psychological battle, which is what ultimately sets him apart. And I love that. And I also would say that it reminded me of the Rebels, scene with Obi-Wan and Darth Maul, where you see both of the wheels turning in their heads, like, oh, he's holding it like, Qui-Gon Jinn, I'm going to go try that same move. And then he switches back to, something else. And just that, mind games that was being played throughout, the chess match that was going on between the two. Lastly, I will also say I'm very curious at what Balen's end game is, because he clearly has no interest in Thrawn himself, because he's like, Thrawn's going to start the war. And his line of, one must destroy in order to create. But we don't know.
That was an amazing line.
It's the Star Wars equivalent of gotta crack some eggs to make an omelet.
Yeah.
Create what is, and then at the end he talks about, he also talks about how he's with Sabine. He talks about he's there, to serve and for a greater good. What is this greater good that he has his eyes set on? What is this misplaced sense of righteousness, almost this misplaced, not faith, because he's lost that faith. What is he clinging to that has driven him to do this?
There's your key. Yeah. So I want to touch on this, because I think my prediction from what we've seen of him is that he both resents and also is hurt by the Jedi, kind of like Ahsoka.
Right.
I think there is rejection somewhere with him in the Jedi, but he also craves the idea of creating a new order of something. Not Sith or Jedi, because he's not Sith. I think that's very obvious to me. Right. And that line where he says, there's a couple things. The line where he says, you have to destroy in order to create or whatever. A brilliant line, but it tells you everything you need to know about him. He craves power. I think he's trying to be like, I'm going to be above the Jedi and the Sith, and I'm going to create like a new Jedi or a new kind of Force user, because he also, I mean, I think look at Shin, right? Shin is a great example of what he's trying to do, because she represents like this weird blend of like darkness, but yet the Jedi elements with the whole, Padawan braid, and like just in how he's just like, he wants power. I think he wants power in order to create his own, like what he thinks he could do better than the Jedi. But he also is this honorable person to where he's like, I'm going to be honorable like all the good Jedi would be, and tell you what I'm going to do. And like, he's trying to be above like whatever he is, he's trying to be above it, right? Like, well, I'm a bad guy, but you know what? I'm going to give people the opportunity. You can go with it or you're going to die. Like, I'm going to give you the option. And
it's very much like Dooku. He gives me such Dooku vibes of, you have lost your way. I can't do this, and then ultimately what is a good idea of him having that initial, inclination of like, we need to do something better, loses his way, loses sight of that, still clinging to, that righteous ideal, completely lost it, because you see how much he does have that code of honor. Like Brian said, you see how deeply he cares for Shin. When when Ahsoka kind of force launches her into the rock, he snaps, like right there. He just snaps and just absolutely unleashes fury onto her. So it's not like he is some typical villain that we've seen that's devoid of feeling for others.
Yeah.
He's not above that at all. He deeply cares for the people around him and his mission.
Well, and I think here's it's important. I think that there's a couple things that she says that I think do a good job of explaining what he represents, because I do feel he's been rejected like Ahsoka. I think there's a connection between the fact when she says, funny, he's never mentioned you, because I feel that he was wronged by the Jedi. Because if he was a true Jedi and or more of a good guy, he'd be more in the lines of like, well, I can't, more humility. Well, I think he was rejected some ways, and there was like probably either he was too dark or I don't know, right? You can whatever, but I do think that he was rejected by the Jedi, and that he took that personally to a point where when the Jedi fell, he was like, I'm gonna do it better. I'm gonna go treat my own thing, because when he, because the fact that he's like, oh yeah, I knew all this and stuff. She's like, I never mentioned you, and like, let's be real. I mean, Ahsoka probably knew a lot of Jedi, and the fact that she didn't hear about this guy, I think tells you all that you need to know about him. He was an unknown, not respected Jedi. He probably wanted to be on the council. He wanted to be a high-ranking Jedi, and wanted to be, let's say maybe he wanted to be like a Qui-Gon Jinn and have a name, but never got there and felt like he was wasted. And now he's like, now it's my opportunity to create my own way of the Force. So that's the vibe that I'm getting. I could be wrong, but that's what I'm getting. And it seems like that fits with that. Because what does he want? He doesn't care about war. He wants power. So anyway, Brian, you want to go ahead and add your part?
I want to talk about this comment here from MB Wilson real quick. Wants to find Ezra to access the world between worlds. I'm going to build off of that for a second, because
does he know about the world between worlds?
Well, he may. Here's what I think's going on. He made the comment about Anakin Skywalker to Ahsoka,
Sure.
and he makes the comment, he's like, everybody in the Order knew Anakin Skywalker. Few would live to see what he became, right? So he knows that Anakin became Darth Vader. He knows he's Anakin Skywalker. I'm sure he's heard of Luke Skywalker at this point, having been a part of the rebellion, taking out the Death Star, and all this other stuff. And so instead of doing all this, he could just go kill, the son, the legacy of Anakin Skywalker, really. Why doesn't he go fight Luke if he wants to stop the Jedi from being a thing again? Why doesn't he go fight Luke? He's not doing that. I think what he's doing is, I think he knows about the world between worlds, and I think he's trying to get to it to get access to Anakin before he becomes Vader, to stop it from happening.
But I don't think. But here's the one problem I have with that, though. I think Ezra is potential, because again, I think of building the Order up. I think he wants to get more recruits, etc. That being said, if he knew about the world between worlds, a lot of people probably did, and more people will be trying to get into it. It feels
probably
like that
knew about it, but he was never able to get back into it.
but Palpatine's like that, yeah, that makes more sense for Palpatine to know about it. Like I would see like maybe but it feels like the World Between Worlds is more of a like way more obscure thing, like the Mortis gods, right? Like again, I don't know. We don't know how if the World Between Worlds and the Mortis gods were a common thing of the Jedi, right? Like, you know, we go back to the Clone Wars episode where the Mortis god. By the way, I just got right now, just for record, if we see the Mortis gods in some way, shape, or form in the series, I will literally like probably jump naked in the street and run and be so happy. Like they won't.
I don't think. Yeah, we.
But if they do. Oh my
because
God.
here's the thing. I think more people knew about the World Between Worlds than what we realize. And I know we'll talk about it here in a minute, and we can talk about it then. But I just want to make a comment real quick. That Anakin we saw in World Between Worlds was not a Force ghost. That was not a Force ghost Anakin Skywalker. So I've got some ideas surrounding that too.
We'll see.
We'll see. Right. But that was no Force ghost. And and if that's where people go when they die, well, how did Ezra and Ahsoka get, you know what I'm saying, like, and then how did they leave? But anyway, we'll talk about that in a minute. But that was no Force ghost Anakin. So there's more going on, I think, behind the scenes that we don't know about yet, and I think it's going to get explained in the next episode.
We'll talk about Anakin in a second.
We will. But I'm thinking, man, I think more people know about that world than what is let on.
Tyler,
I really do. Because Ahsoka knew about it before in Rebels when she first got pulled into it. She knew about it. She's the one that told
because
Ezra
she had the sisters, because she was probably talking with the sister from Mortis, like because she's in that owl form. Because they've been hanging out.
But how was the owl there then? Like before Ahsoka was even there. As soon as she came in, she knew
because she's a freaking Mortis god. I mean, I
don't think we were going to talk about the Mortis stuff though. Dave Filoni said he'd rather keep that as a mystery. He doesn't want to answer all the questions about Mortis. He wants to keep a part of it as a mystery. So I don't think we're going to get any answers with the whole Mortis thing.
You're probably right. I'm not something we're talking about. I'm talking about World War II.
Right, I know. But I think more people know about it than
you could be right.
You're letting on.
I don't think so. But Tyler, we'll have the last name. We'll move on to Anakin.
I don't think that Ahsoka, when she entered the World Between Worlds, I don't know if it's she knew about it. I think it's they're walking around and she's just a lot wiser than Ezra is, and kind of was able to understand what it is, and kind of like what's going on to some extent. I think that the World Between Worlds type stuff we're going to see is going to be primarily focused in episode 5, and I don't think we're going to see. I think this is going to be an Ahsoka centric thing. I don't think it's going to extend past that. I don't think that Dave and everyone ever meant for the World Between Worlds to be this free for all. Like so many people know it, we can tap into it like super easily. Again, but like I said, we know nothing about it outside of just a couple of that one episode basically. For the most part. So who knows? I just kind of think that we're going to get it in this one episode, and then we're going to find something new, something fresh that Balen is after that we're going to discover in a couple episodes.
Well, that Imperial scientist from Rebels knew what it was.
Mm-hmm.
He knew it was a portal to it, and he wanted Sabine to open it up, and she didn't know how. Ezra was already there, but he knew what was in there. He told Sabine what it was.
But I think Palpatine is the reason why, though. I think that's.
But then how did Palpatine know about it? I mean, like
Palpatine, he's also like doing all kinds.
He knows what everyone. But it's Palpatine. He knows what everyone's eating for breakfast.
Dude, he knows.
He knows what you're eating for breakfast. He knows, what.
But he doesn't know how to open it.
Poop is like.
Well,
I don't know.
Yeah, but that's the whole point. Like
he knows everything except how to access it.
Right, which makes sense. I mean, like in freaking, they found it out by accident. Basically, it took the key. It took the wolves to. I just watched this episode the other day. I'm so thankful I did. Now it took the wolves giving them like Sabine a key, an artist. By the way, which I thought was another brilliant touch, an artistic mind like Sabine. Like we got also in the first episode of Ahsoka to dissect and understand it better than anyone else. Again,
and match that with Ezra's ability to use the Force, and which
you could also even say at that point, maybe that's why she's maybe Force sensitive, because she is attuned to that kind. So yeah, there's lots of great stuff here. Let's end it on here. Obviously, we've got the World Between Worlds happens, which I thought was a good possibility. Didn't expect it to come up this soon. I was blown away. We got it this fast, guys. And I was gonna say right now, we hear snips, and I'm like, no way. And I knew we were gonna get Anakin. That was the best not kept secret of this whole show, which is fine. That made sense. I mean, I'm not trying to, whatever. That being said, the fact that it's in the world between worlds, and this is where I'm going to push back on you, Brian. I do think this is a Force ghost. I think this is a manifestation of the Force. I think this is Anakin coming to Ahsoka as who he is in the Force, but because it's like literally the world between worlds is like an incarnated like Force mecha, or you could say, what's the word I'm looking for? Vortex, if you will. I think he comes in clear, and it's also what she perceives as Anakin, which is which is what he looks like. I think that this is Anakin is going to be talking with Ahsoka, like kind of what Tyler had mentioned before. This is going to be her start of the Ahsoka the White, right? Whereas Filoni says how Gandalf did this whole weird thing in Tolkien, whatever, but we're going to see that when Gandalf carried over into this other world, whatever. We're going to see that here for Ahsoka. Literally, we're going to see that on screen, and it's going to be probably through Anakin, which I don't think it's it. That's why I think it has to be a Force ghost. I think Anakin has to be leading her on this new version of Ahsoka, which would be very poetic in a good way, right, Tyler? I mean, in my opinion, again, it's my opinion. It feels like this is what it should be going forward. If it's not, it doesn't make sense if it's not a Force ghost. I feel this has to be the characterization of Anakin, personification of Anakin, excuse me, because I do feel like Vader will show up eventually, and there will be a duke out between Anakin and Ahsoka, or excuse me, Vader and Ahsoka, but it's going to be in the sense of like the tree in Dagobah. It's going to be, Ahsoka coming to terms with who her master is, and everything. So, Tyler, I would give it to you here. What's your take on all this? And then Brian will get your thoughts next.
I think it's possible that this is not the actual world between worlds at all.
Whoa. Okay.
I think this is ultimately going to be a wild Force trip, and it's possible she's in the real world between worlds. It's also possible this is some sort of Force apparition fully inside of her head and this is my theory, but also my hope, that a redeemed Anakin is behind all of this, and that ultimately who she sees there is not a redeemed Anakin. I think that it is going to be Darth Vader who she is seeing there, and I don't think redeemed Anakin is going to make his way talking to her until the very end. I think we're going to see Ahsoka go on a journey from when she was a young apprentice with her master. We already know based off of some of the
Don't tell me. I avoid spoilers. I avoid spoilers. Don't tell me.
All right. I'm going to assume a Clone Wars flashback happens, and we are and I think we're going to walk through the life of Ahsoka here with Anakin. There's going to be a Clone Wars flashback, and she is going to see in her mind what could have been if she had stayed. And I think similarly too, and a friend of mine mentioned this too, we were talking about this. Do you remember in Clone Wars when Yoda had the vision of what could have been, and Count Dooku was there, and Qui-Gon was there, and everything? We're going to see in her mind what she believes the future could have been if she stayed. And what she's going to find out is her master is still going to turn to the dark side. Her master is still going to be Vader, and she's going to have to fight him. Those two are going to fight each other. And it's going to be essentially her worst nightmare, but ultimately will release her of the guilt that she has had. And I think that Hayden Christensen deserves the right to play a redeemed Anakin. I think he is going to get that right, and we will see him at the end being that Force ghost, redeemed Anakin, come to her and be like, I had to teach you this one last lesson. This is something you needed to learn. I needed you to let go of your guilt of what happened to me. That was me. And I failed. I failed you. I failed everyone, that we loved. And it's not your fault. And it's going to be this really emotional moment where she forgives herself. And because of that, she's going to be able to have the kind of master apprentice relationship she needs to have with Sabine. We're going to see her become, I hate the whole Ahsoka, the white, gray, whatever, but I think that we're going to see, her become that version of Ahsoka that is finally like healed. She's finally going to get the closure that she needs, and it's going to come through an unexpected, truly raw journey that begins with kind of this idealistic version in her head of like, we always have that moment in our lives where it's like that regret, like if we had done that differently, things would have turned out differently. Mm-hmm. And I think in her, she's always had that. And now she's going to live out what would happen if she had made a different decision. And she's going to find out that it would not have saved her master. And I think that the Vader theme is very clear. Like this is going to be a Darth Vader thing. And I am not prepared for them emotionally, for them to fight again. I'm not prepared for that. I am going to sit back and wait for it. I really hope we get a mix of Kevin Kiner's new music, because the new music has been outstanding. I hope we get a mix of that with some classic Revenge of the Sith or Clone Wars or Attack of the Clones type prequel music. I heard someone say the other day that what if they can mix some of this new class music and kind of come up with a new Battle of the Heroes type song where it's her versus Anakin instead of that whole Obi-Wan thing. But that's kind of what I think. I'm kind of laying out like that's kind of where I think this is going to go. I think that makes the most sense for me, because she needs to believe that this is real and this is her chance to possibly live through that, versus if Anakin redeemed shows up for her from the beginning and is like, let's take a little journey. I think it has less of an impact because it braces her for what's coming versus her going into it thinking she's getting what she's always wanted.
All right, Tyler, Brian, go for it.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but when Ezra and Thrawn at the end of season 4 of Rebels shoot off into hyperspace on the Chimera, aren't there pieces of that temple from Lothal on the ship that they rebuilt brick by brick that Palpatine was trying to use Ezra to lure him into his parents and everything like that? That's the same temple that had the portal on it, correct? That's the portal. That's the temple he was talking about. So does that mean that they
destroyed that? I think though. I think it was like
they destroyed it. Yeah,
I thought it was like rubble at the end though.
But was it okay? So if that portal is still there though, isn't that kind of a backdoor she has to Ezra and Thrawn now? I mean, they already shot off into hyperspace, and she's the one that got left behind. Is she going to get there before they do? You know what I mean?
It could be her way to access Ezra and them without having. It could be their way out
to go. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I don't know what's going on with Anakin. Like, as cool as it is to see him, don't get me wrong, it's awesome to see Anakin and Ahsoka together for the first time in live action. And I said it last week, and I'm mad. I'm really mad that that's the way that episode ended, and I have to wait a week. I'm really mad. And I told you that was going to happen. I knew. I had this gut feeling. It was a feeling in the Force. I think it's the real world between worlds. I think it's actually. I don't think she's necessarily having a vision of it. I think she's actually there, and part of me really wants to say that is actually Anakin Skywalker, and I like everybody's idea about him taking kind of like the Christmas Story thing, right? Taking her down and showing her this is what would happen had you stayed, or this is what you had no control over it. Try to release that guilt. I like that idea, I really do. And I'm sure we're gonna get an explanation next week. I know we're going to. In my mind's eye, I like to think, and this probably won't happen, but I like to think that this is actually Anakin from the prequel trilogy, and he somehow stumbled upon the world between worlds on a mission somewhere, or he got split up from Obi-Wan and he just fell into this thing, and Obi-Wan's around looking for him somewhere, and he fell into this thing, saw a window of Ahsoka getting her butt kicked the same way Ezra did in Rebels, and reaches in to pull her out, and maybe this is after Ahsoka leaves the temple, or the order or whatever. I don't know, but I'm wondering if that's not what's going on here. And then because Anakin, and remember, this is just in my brain, because Anakin's from the prequel trilogy era, she can't even tell him anything about what's going to happen because it'll alter the future. Like she told Ezra, you can't save your master the same way I can't save mine. And so she can't tell Anakin about what's going to happen. And I don't like, I could see it going any of the ways that we've talked about. I can see it going any of those directions, really.
Mhm.
And so I just think there's something cool about the idea of her getting to face Anakin one more time, the real Anakin. And I don't know. It's not a complete thought, but it's just where my brain was going after the episode. You know, it was going a million miles an hour like everybody's was. So
Yeah.
that's
I
kind
just
of
think for her to really heal and get that resolution,
Yeah.
she needs to have no doubts about her decision to leave the Jedi. And the only way for that to happen, I think, is for her to be faced with the reality of seeing a future or seeing a point in time where she stays and it still everything goes to hell, or inserting herself in a moment in time where he has turned and thinking maybe I can bring him back before it's too late, and realizing, there's nothing that you could have done, because it's one thing when he's already in the suit and he's, more machine now than man to try to bring him back, versus when you still see the flesh, his face, he's there. I think that it would also be, and the world between worlds is tricky. Like if if Anakin has stumbled in there and done that, and everything happens and he sees an older Ahsoka, and he ultimately finds his way back out of the world between worlds, then why was Vader surprised when she was alive in Rebels? When he's like, oh, the apprentice lives, like she is alive. But it's like, well, 5 years ago, you were stumbled upon. She looked a little older. Like, I don't know. It's
maybe that's how Palpatine knows about it. Anakin became Vader. Vader told Palpatine, like, hey, I found this realm.
And that's the fun thing about this. And I said this at the beginning of like our show, that there are no, like, there's, the gloves are off with this show, and Dave has pretty much said, like, there's nothing, I'm holding nothing back. I would just bet most of like my theory. I really hope too that we get to see ultimately a redeemed Anakin be able to like have that one final lesson with Ahsoka, and have that moment. And I think that the way that moment really hits home is if she sees, like, she fights her master, unable to save him, even though it went exactly according to plan. I stayed, I was there, I was with him, I didn't leave his side, we were together till the end, and yet still wasn't enough, because he was ultimately meant to fall. And then she'll finally forgive herself, and that, that wound will always be there, but she's able to move on.
Yeah. No, I'm with you guys on that one. So let's wrap it up here. Last, final thoughts with everything here before we get out of here. Anything else we want to touch on? One
I need the portal to the world between worlds so that I can go to Tuesday and watch the episode now.
You'll have already seen the whole thing all at once, because all time is intersected. You know how the Dave Filoni movie ends already.
That's
Thrawn
true.
Oh
God,
Thrawn
survived.
Have to win. We've already seen the sequel trilogy. I do know how it ends.
Somehow Thrawn has returned.
He's gonna die on the bridge of a ship very poetically, just kind of like how General Pride went out in episode 9. Just the explosion blows him through the viewport. That'd be great.
Cool. All right, let's
I did see
say our little, where we can.
Did we lose Paul there for a second?
Yeah, I think we did. He's frozen in club tonight. Look at him.
I will say this, since he's frozen. I saw this hilarious tweet, and I have to say it was so funny. It was just so funny. It was like, if he was some theory that like it's harder for Force ghosts to manifest themselves, and the more time they spend trying to manifest themselves, the less powerful their apparitions appear. And it was like, I would like to think in my headcanon, the reason that, Anakin really hasn't shown up to talk to Luke or Ahsoka is he's just popping in the Boon to Eve Classic every year. And it's taking away all his time because he's just watching pod races all day.
Now,
and then he's like,
pod racing.
That's kind of what I laughed so hard.
He's keeping up on his sports.
He's just like,
he's going to NASCAR races. Yeah.
I'm like, Luke's got a training session with that kid. I can't make it. 3:00 is, we're over on the Malastair for the pod racing championship.
Boon to 500. Here we go.
Anyway, I saw that. That was so funny.
When you're dead, you can smoke all the death sticks you want.
Oh my gosh.
I think he froze again. Did he freeze again, or is he just deep in thought? Oh, okay. He's there.
Okay.
Well, am I freezing? My internet is going crazy all of a sudden. I'm not sure what's going on. Kids, hear me all right? Am I doing okay?
Yeah, I can hear you now. You're good. You're
Negatory?
good. We'll close it out. Yeah, we'll close it out. We're good.
All right. Why don't you, Tyler? Where can people find you on your socials and what?
Yeah, just at TyBread5 at Twitter. I just put out a review of Tales in Light and Life earlier this week. I think it was on Tuesday or Wednesday. This High Republic book. It was just, I don't know, it's cheesy, but it was just layered with good old Star Wars love right there. It was every single story is absolutely wonderful. If you love the High Republic, if you even just like reading short stories with the nice little short story Star Wars anthology, it is the book for you. You check out my review at Star Wars Newsnet. I'll be getting back into the world of comics now that the High Republic is returning soon. So I'll be having a lot of Star Wars comic reviews coming out. You can always see me here on Thursdays, and you can probably catch me weeping next Tuesday night at the emotional episode of the Millennia.
I think he froze up again, didn't he?
Yeah, I think so. Why don't you just wrap us up here, Brian?
Yeah, you guys can find me every Thursday here. You guys can find me on the weekly roundup here on Newsnet. And you guys can find me on my show, the Star Wars Canon Podcast. We are coming back this week. I talked to my co-host today. We're going to be recording tomorrow night, getting it out for Saturday. We're going to be talking some Ahsoka, man. He's a huge Ahsoka fan. So it's probably all we're going to be talking about. You guys can check that out on Saturday night. Also, you guys can follow me on my no longer non-active Twitter at Brian Miller 1138. Because I finally, this past episode actually was enough to get me to tweet something for once. So I actually tweeted for like the first time in like years. So I'm starting to step into the world of, what is it now? X? What is it? Twitter? We'll just call it Twitter. I'm stepping into a larger world. So go follow me there. We'll see. And I'm sure next week's episode there's going to be a tweet on there about that. I'll probably Twitter it.
Yeah.
Not prepared.
Yeah. No one is. So you can follow me at Twitter on X, Twitter, whatever the hell it's called, at Herman22 with 2 N's, aka P Thug. You can also please check out my videos and subscribe to my channel, The Comic Binge. We have a lot of Star Wars content on there. Lots of all kinds of comic book content on. If you like books, it is the place to go. I appreciate everyone who's already done that already. Really appreciate everyone else. And next week, I will not be here, but we've got the other guys going to be taking over. But either way, we're going to have a lot to talk about next week. And I can't wait to talk about it with everyone. So, all right, Star Warriors. Brian, take us out, my friend.
Hey, until next week, guys. May the Force be with you.